to Norfolk, and a growing international network of over 70 chambers and business associations. Together, we bring together over 80,000 firms of every size and sector who collectively employ nearly 6 million people. For today's panel, we are here to discuss 2 reports that we have published as part of our People campaign, which looks to address some of the biggest issues facing firms: access to people with the right skills, tackling falling productivity, and the changing nature of the workplace. The first report is the Workplace Training and Development Commission's report, which we publish in partnership with Indeed. The report follows the Commission's inquiry into how we achieve a world-class system for retaining and upskilling our workforce to take advantage of rapid changes in technology, working practices, and industrial and consumer trends. The report makes recommendations for both businesses and policymakers, some of which will be explored as part of this event. The second report is titled The Next Normal, Futureproofing the Workforce for a Post-Pandemic World. This was published in partnership with Barclays Life Skills and focused on what the uncertainty caused by COVID-19 has meant for how businesses manage employees and how it may permanently change how many manage their employees in the future. Today, we can also discuss how the report's conclusions can be used by businesses, educators and policymakers alike to understand more about how workforce can be future-proofed. Before jumping into our panel discussion featuring leading experts in the field of skills, we have a video message from the Under-Secretary of State for Skills, Gillian Keegan, who will speak on the findings of the report and more broadly on their importance. Julia, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear anything.
They are fundamental to a core asset, our human capital, and they will drive business investment and productivity. And we must invest in skills and our skills system to drive economic growth and enhance our country's competitive advantage. We can only rebuild our economy and build it back greener and compete globally with a skills system that trains a dynamic and flexible workforce to meet the needs of employers, both current and in the future. Our Skills for Jobs white paper is the blueprint to create the skills needed to rebuild our economy. So today I would like to talk to you about how we take this together forward. Before I do that, let's start with some facts. Our productivity levels are only 4% higher than they were in 2008. That's a shocking figure that we've stagnated more or less over more than a decade. In addition, employers have told us that they had 214,000 vacancies in 2019, and they were unable to fill these vacancies. They could not find the people with the right skills, the right qualifications, or the right experience. And this is equivalent to 24% of all vacancies. And McKinsey predicts a growing demand for skills. And if nothing is ever done, an increasing skills mismatch. And that could be around 7 million additional workers predicted to be underskilled by 2030. And there's a lot that we need to achieve by 2030, not only in rebuilding our economy, but also reaching our net zero target. So this is why, after being appointed Minister for Apprenticeship and Skills, I spent the first 6 months of the job in meetings talking about our skills shortages and the reasons behind them and trying to uncover what they were. And since then, it's become clear that the pandemic has exacerbated these long-standing problems and made the need to deliver the right skills ever more acute. Before becoming an MP, I had a 30-year career in business, working in many different companies, many different sectors all over the world. And I saw firsthand the difficulties that employers have to recruit the people they need with the right skills internationally. And a lot of these skills, we do compete for the same skills internationally, whether that's software development, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, or many different skills, even in construction, etc., as many countries will seek to rebuild their economies by literally building and infrastructure investment. This global race for talent will only accelerate as we all try to rebuild after the pandemic. So we need to do something about it now, not down the road. And we need to recast our skills system and put employers and local needs at the core of what we do. We're giving employers of all sizes and from all sectors a greater voice in local skills planning. Colleges will respond to these locally agreed priorities and establish strategic partnerships with employers through our £65 million strategic development fund by, for example, setting up a college business centre to support local businesses, drive innovation and growth. Our reforms will also give employers a greater voice in defining the content of technical courses, qualifications and apprenticeships. By 2030, nearly all standards for technical education and training will have been designed by employers. And this will give both employers and individuals the confidence in the value of technical education and training, and they will know that it will be the key to economic recovery and excellent opportunities, high quality routes to a fulfilling career at any age and at any stage. And as we develop a skills system that meets the needs of employers, we want to ensure that it presents some opportunities for everyone to benefit. And we will do this through the Prime Minister's Lifetime Skills Guarantee, which is enshrined in the White Paper and was a key feature of the Queen's speech at the opening of Parliament yesterday. We want everybody to have the opportunity to train, retrain and upskill throughout their lives to respond to changing needs and employment patterns. Importantly, we want people to be able to do this in a much more flexible way to fit study around work, family and personal commitments. We want to ensure that there are opportunities for everyone, no matter what their circumstances. And last month, we marked a major milestone in the Lifetime Skills Guarantee with the rollout of almost 400 qualifications, which are now available to any adult who does not already have a level 3 qualification. And thousands of adults have so far taken advantage of new skills boot camps, offering free, flexible courses lasting up to 16 weeks in priority sectors, including construction, digital, anything digital, and technical. That includes engineering, electrical engineering, welding, a whole host of technical subjects. On a recent visit to a skills academy in Exeter, I heard firsthand how learners are using skills boot camps to help them enter in new careers or gain new skills and the confidence to re-enter the workplace, potentially after having a family or taking a career break for caring responsibilities. I also heard from employers how important it is to have a valuable training hub on their site to support their employment and training strategy and to build that pipeline of new employees and new apprentices. This responds to growing employer demand for skills that our higher technical education provides. These are the type of skills that we're short of and the type of skills that employers need. And we will also introduce a lifelong loan entitlement from 2025 to offer more people those routes to that kind of training at any stage of their life. People will be able to space out their studies and learn at a pace that is right for them, including choosing to build up their qualifications in modules over time. And these steps are vital. They will foster a fair and open skills system that offers genuine opportunity and levelling up across the country with equity between vocational, technical and academic routes. One of the things that was brought into stark focus by the pandemic was the reliance that everybody, businesses and individuals, have on technology. Digital skills have never been more important, and 82% of all job openings online request digital skills, and yet a staggering 52% of the workforce do not yet have essential digital skills for work, or at least they didn't when we did this survey. A few more may have learned them through the pandemic by necessity. In August 2020, we introduced the digital entitlement for adults who need essential digital skills for work, giving free access to new digital skills qualifications based on employer-supported national standards. And we want to make sure everybody is aware of those. They're a new qualification, so we want to make sure that all your employees and others are aware that this is available now across the country. And in line with the Lifetime Skills Guarantee, We will make essential digital skills provision more accessible, flexible, by building on the innovation we introduced during the coronavirus pandemic, such as the Skills Toolkit, which is an online platform that allows you to develop these skills further. The government is making revolutionary changes to the skills system to provide you with the skills you need for your businesses, to support your plans to shift to a higher skilled workforce and to improve productivity. You will have a key role to play in the delivery and the success of these reforms. You cannot have an employer-led skills system without employers, and we want to work with you to realise this ambition. This is a fantastic opportunity to not only transform the productivity of your business, but to transform the productivity of our country and overall our economic prospects. And you can do this in many ways. The British Chambers of Commerce and other employer representative bodies and their members can demand the skills that are needed now and build the skills pipeline of the future. With the skills system, we're offering you the chance to engage with careers events, work placements, T-levels, apprenticeships, boot camps, and many other ways to engage with this new skills system that we're designing around your needs. As business leaders, you can identify the professional development and the training and upskilling needs of your existing employees as well within your organisations and deliver through the programme set out in the white paper new skills, upskills opportunities for existing employees. You can proactively engage with skills providers to establish how you can work together to meet your skills needs and to prepare the next generation of your workforce that will keep your businesses going in the future. You can also respond to upcoming and ongoing consultations to inform how we can work together to maximise the excellent opportunities that I believe are there in the white paper. With these reforms, we want to create great economic outcomes by giving businesses the tools they need to grow and individuals the best career opportunities. I'm inviting you to embrace this opportunity, demand the best skills for your business and work with these initiatives so that skills provision fulfills your business ambitions and the aspirations for people across this country. It is true that talent is spread all over this country and opportunity is not. We want to make sure that more individuals have access to opportunity through the revolutionary changes in our skills systems. And this is our goal, and I look forward to working with you all to make it a reality. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gillian. I know she's not here, but I can still say thank you. I think Gillian has a really good understanding of the different ways of progressing through a career, train, retrain and upskill, given opportunities for everyone, which is an excellent way of starting us off today. He is, of course, I think, involving employers in the forming of educational paths of the future. And I really liked her phrase, talent is spread all over the country, opportunity is not. And that's something we're going to have to address if we are going to really move forward. So I'd now like to introduce the members of our panel today. First, we have Pavel Adrian, who is the head of EMEA research at Indeed. We have Kirsty McKee, who is the MD of Citizen and Consumer Affairs at Barclays, and Jane Grattan, who is head of people policy at the British Chambers of Commerce. First of all, I think I'd like to go to Pavel, if you're ready. What skills do you think that businesses are looking for now, and how do you think that has changed in the last year?
Hi, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Before I answer the question, I just would like to thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel and also for letting me be part of the Workplace Training and Development Commission, which British Chambers have run, with a special thanks to Jane Grattan for managing the Commission's work so efficiently and to Jane Boardman for chairing the Commission. It was a real privilege to be part of that work and to play a part in publishing the recent report. In terms of what skills are in demand right now and what businesses are looking for, we monitor that very closely at Indeed. We are the UK's largest job site. We aggregate job postings from across the UK, and so that gives us a unique view into what businesses are searching for in the market today. I have to say, though, that right now we are going through a very unusual period. The economy is very imbalanced. Some sectors have been going really at full speed during the pandemic, while others are still operating well under capacity. So the current view may not necessarily be the most relevant one for thinking about the long-term demand for skills. But nevertheless, it's likely that some of the shifts in the economy that happened during the pandemic will persist. So for instance, we've seen consumer habits change. We've seen people spend more on goods, less on services. People are shopping online more, spending less on social activities. And that has really led to a shift in the job opportunities and the skills that employers demand. So over the past year, we have seen a big shift towards jobs directly related to the health crisis, like healthcare and social care, and a shift towards services that support this new stay-at-home economy and the new consumer habits. So we've seen robust hiring in sectors like food retail, driving, delivery, but also manufacturing and construction, as both companies and businesses spend more on goods and buildings. So in all those sectors, we're actually seeing more job vacancies today than before the pandemic, which means that skills that relate to those jobs are in very high demand. Now, some of these shifts are certainly transitory. Some of them will even out as the economy reopens and recovers, as people go back to offices, and as people work less remotely. But a few trends, I think, have persisted for some time and will persist in the future. When we look at the three sectors with the lowest number of unemployed people per job vacancy, they're the same three sectors today as 2 years ago before the pandemic. And so those are the sectors where skills gaps and shortages seem to be the most chronic. And those sectors are: 1, health and social care; 2, professional, scientific and technical activities; and 3, information and communication. So this need for digital skills, technical skills, and skills related to health and care seem to be a real constant, and have been a constant both when the UK was at peak employment before, and they're still there today. So those are some of the areas that I think we really need to address through the skills system.
Thank you very much, Pavel. And sorry, I forgot to say, as I always do, if you have any questions, then please put them in the chat and we will work our way through them as well as we go through the panels. So leading on from there, Kirsty, Pavel's talking about the need for skills, particularly in the scientific area. How are you helping to prepare people for that at a young age to come into science and use their skills in that arena?
Yeah, so one of the programs that I run at Barclays is a program called Life Skills, and we're helping young people make that transition from education to the world of work. And we're doing that in a number of different ways. So we're really trying to help open up aspirations, increase confidence for young people, and to see that there is a wide world out there where they can all work. And that's doing a variety of things. So in terms of preparing young people, rather than focusing on different technical and digital skills, we've been looking at those core transferable skills that we think young people will need. So things like resilience, communication, problem solving, creativity. And if young people have these core transferable skills, that will enable them to go on to look at those digital roles and technical roles that Pavel's talked about. And I think for young people as well, it's important for them to have as much access to as many different job opportunities as possible and different experiences of the world of work. So we're helping to promote that through work experience, giving young people work experience either virtually or when we could do face-to-face, to really try and improve aspirations for young people and make that the connection between work and education a lot stronger.
And I thought it was interesting what Gillian said. Again, I repeat that line about opportunities are not universal. And I'm very aware of that, having had a child who was very good at maths and sciences. A 2-week placement when she was in year 10 in an engineering company sent her off in an engineering direction. So I think it is important we try and level up in all areas, isn't it?
Definitely. And, you know, for young people, it's making sure now, if you think about how the workforce has changed, actually during COVID, it's meant that companies have got access to a wider talent pool now, because everything's being done virtually and more people are able to work remotely. So those particular parts around the country where we may have more cold spots, there may not be so many job opportunities, or that has now really widened for young people. So they have far more, if they don't want to leave their home area, which a lot of young people from those cold spots tend to stay local, they can now work for some of the big organisations in bigger cities that they may not have been able to before.
Fantastic. And Jane, can I bring you in? You're doing lots of nodding.
Yeah, well, the Chamber Network, as you know, Sarah, does a huge amount of work with young people connecting businesses to schools and helping to make all of those along the sort of careers information and introducing young people to the workplace and supporting them throughout. So it is very important. It's very much on our radar in terms of creating opportunities for young people and that pipeline of future talent. Okay, thank you. And so obviously, a lot of this is about how we engage employers into forming the future. So Jane, how has this report really reflected that, and where do you think it's going to go? So we've been working on the report for 18 months. We're in a different place than when we started at the beginning of the report, November 2019, and then obviously the pandemic came along. But all of the evidence that we heard during the Commission's inquiry and all of the conclusions are as sound now as they were before. And then the conclusion is it's absolutely critical that businesses invest in skills. So as we heard from the Minister, there are massive shortages. Access to skills have been at the top of the business agenda for a long time. We know that over the last, well, really since 2014, our data shows that business investment in skills is declining year on year. And it's really essential that we arrest this decline and start businesses investing again. And that's about giving them confidence in the system, making the system flexible so that it meets their needs, and also giving them the ability, the resources, the support to create really high performance learning cultures where it's driving innovation and productivity, and firms are seeing a real return on investment for their investment in skills and people. Thank you. Edward Gray has raised a really good point on our Q&A section about, quite rightly, a focus on skills, but that does take away from the other important traditional elements of education. And what would be your answer to this? Pavel, let's go back to you.
I'm happy to jump in. So as economists, we tend to differentiate between two types of training, skills training. One is firm-specific training. So that could be like operating a specific machine that a given business uses. So it's a very kind of firm-specific skill. And the second type of training is general training on things that are transferable skills, like some of the ones that Kirsty mentioned earlier. So digital skills, basic literacy, numeracy, or even more technical things like understanding the rules for exporting goods after Brexit, for instance. Those are things that an employee can take from one job to another throughout their career. And businesses generally have an incentive to invest to the fullest in firm-specific training because that's necessary for the job, but they may not actually invest fully in general skills. That investment often needs to be shared because employees benefit from it themselves and take it with them when they leave. So that means both businesses and individuals have that responsibility for investing in those skills. And individuals especially will carry the brunt of investing in some of these general things that both Edward and Kirsty mentioned. Now, of course, it's really difficult for people to often find the time and the money and access to resources to be able to make that investment. So that's really where government and the educational system come in. They really need to facilitate that sort of training with incentives, funding, and making sure that schools give young people these general skills that they can apply to all kinds of careers.
And Kirsty, it's something that you focus on as part of your programme, isn't it?
Yeah, this is something we very much focus on with Life Skills. As I said, the core transferable skills, because we wanted to make the programme as accessible to all. And we've had 30 million young people go through the programme in the last 8 years that we've been running it. And that's really designed to make sure it fits with the curriculum. So rather than it being employability skills, it's one side, and then you've got the academic qualifications the other, is actually how can you weave all of these core transferable skills into the curriculum for young people to make sure they're employable. And that doesn't necessarily mean just going into work. It might be starting their own business. So encouraging young people to be creative by having an enterprising mindset. And that could be enterprising by starting your own business, or by equally going into a large organization and being enterprising there.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to talk about the findings of the report a bit more. Jane, what do you think we found, and what are your views on how we need to change the skills system to help employers train more people in the workplace?
So the Commission identified 5 key areas where policymakers could support businesses to invest more, but it also identified some areas where business could do more to identify and address their own skills needs. But in terms of the skills system, firstly, we found some really fantastic examples of businesses, larger businesses with their own HR and learning and development resource internally, doing some brilliant stuff with young people and adults of all ages. And they offered some really best practice that we can look to and possibly scale up across the country. But many SMEs don't have that internal resource, and they struggle. They told us they actually struggle to identify what skills their people needed in the workplace, and how to identify the right training and maybe access funding for that and support for that as well. So one of the things is that impartial support, business support, going in to say to firms, you know, here's how to conduct a basic training needs analysis, looking towards innovation and growth plans, and how you can bring people along with you in the workplace to maximise that investment in innovation and in skills. So that was the first thing, really supporting businesses to help themselves. Secondly, it was around improving access to digital skills. Again, that's been mentioned a lot this morning, really, but digital skills at all levels in the workplace, from basic use of Microsoft Office packages, right the way through to really sort of detailed, in-depth specific skills that are going to help firms to increase productivity, automate and digitalise. The third area really looked at the qualifications themselves, and we have, over the last few years, we've developed some fantastic qualifications because they've been employer-led, employer-designed, so they're brilliant. But for many small firms and for many adults in the workplace, doing a full qualification over a long period of time can be a bit off-putting. And so one of the key recommendations of the Commission was to really chunk up all of these really good quality qualifications into these bite-sized modular units, so that all adults, whatever stage they're at, whatever their personal circumstances, have an opportunity to upskill and reskill quickly in an accredited course that really adds value to them, helps them in their career, but really helps the employer very quickly. So it's providing that very quick return on investment for the employer as well. The fourth area we looked at was how well businesses are engaged in the skills system at the local level. And again, we heard lots of barriers that businesses face in terms of identifying the right training, and very often we heard the refrain, I have a skills problem, but the skills system is trying to sell me something I don't need. Yeah, nobody's able to actually help me solve the problem I have. And so it's about the skills system listening to the needs of employers at the local level. Once you've enabled employers to articulate those needs and identify them, giving them a much stronger voice in local skills planning, and giving the skills system itself, training providers, the flexibility to actually deliver what it is that business needs. So it's really turning the system around, so it's much more demand-led, employer-led at the local level. And then the final recommendation in terms of policy was enabling individuals to take their own initiative, very much as Pavel's just been saying, really. allowing them to record all sorts of bite-sized training and learning in a passport that employers understand, but giving them access to this, to the funding and to the bite-sized training and the qualifications, good quality employer-backed qualifications that individuals themselves can take responsibility for. But alongside all of this, employers need to support their people to do so. That's giving them the time, giving them the financial support where appropriate, you know, backing individual skills, backing people to develop, so that we can fill some of these job vacancies, you know, from within, bringing our workforce with us, and helping people to help the business become more productive.
I think there's also a role for us as employers to give our employees the confidence to go and do these things as well. Had a bad experience at school, so the idea of for them of going back to school is not something they want to do, but making them realise it's actually something that is productive, they're going to learn from in a very different environment. I think there's a space for us there as well.
Absolutely, yes, it is. And again, the Commission found when we were talking to businesses that many managers were struggling to engage some of the workforce in skills development. People who've been away from the education system for a long time maybe lack the confidence and some of the basic skills to get engaged. And there were some sad stories where people who had the right behaviours and characteristics and experience to take a promotion weren't coming forward for those promotions because of their, you know, a lack of confidence. So a lot of it comes down to the managers' skills, people skills of managers and their ability to engage everybody in the workplace, because we're only going to be more productive and innovative if we bring everybody in the workplace with us.
Havel, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I'd like to just highlight one point that Jane has made, which I think is really important, which is the point about digital skills being relevant to all kinds of jobs these days. So it's not really just about teaching people to code and become programmers, but we're increasingly seeing that hospitality workers, for instance, get access to jobs and sign up for shifts through mobile phone apps. More and more job interviews are happening online through video conference. And this isn't just something that's happening during lockdowns, it's actually something that the pandemic has simply accelerated, and we're going to see more and more use of digital skills in situations like that across the occupational and skill distribution. So it's one of the things we found in the Commission is it's really important for people to develop those kinds of skills. You know, it's possible that, say, younger hospitality workers can manage those apps to sign up for shifts more easily than older workers, and maybe, you know, older workers need a bit more training on those types of things. But also there's a question of access. So to actually get access to an online job interview, you need to have broadband internet, you need to have a smartphone. And a lot of people maybe in low-income areas and low-income households may not even have access to those opportunities. So I think both the training and access issues are really important to give people kind of full access and full participation in the digital economy.
Kirsty, how are you finding employers are dealing with this issue?
So I think from what we heard from the roundtables that we did in our piece of research, I mean, this is one of the big challenges around employers are finding around how you pivot to training your employees remotely as well. I think that's been really hard. I mean, if we look at Barclays, all of our training had to be changed to be delivered digitally during last year. And I think businesses have found that. But in addition to skills, I think what we saw last year and obviously the adapting to the digital environment we talked about was the increased incidence of employee wellbeing and mental health. And I think the role that businesses need to play there in supporting employees is incredibly important. I mean, we can see from numerous news articles about how mental health has increased, mental health issues have increased across the UK. And just thinking about how we can support people as they are working remotely. And it's been an incredibly challenging time, whether that's people working remotely. Some people have found it very challenging. They may have been homeschooling, they may have felt lonely. And other people will maybe have enjoyed it and then feeling anxious about returning to that workforce. So I think wellbeing is something that's been increasingly important. And I think actually employees are going to be expecting their employers to be supportive of their needs during this time.
You're right, employers definitely have a more of an expectation of care from their employers, quite rightly so. And in Mental Health Week, it's a very relevant subject to be discussing, and something we've been talking about around the network is about how we're getting back into work. Obviously, some jobs, manufacturing jobs, have to be on site, and how people are going to start splitting the way they do things. And Jane, what are you finding from our membership at the moment, the way people are dealing with this and how people are going back, what they've learned from it?
So I think businesses are more, they're more comfortable, shall we say, in remote working and working from home. We've seen a massive acceleration in the use of sort of Zoom, as you know, and Teams and these sort of remote working communication tools. But as has been said earlier, really, employers are recognising that there are benefits from bringing people together in the office, and particularly for young people. If you're starting a career, you're starting a new job in a sort of pandemic or in a remote working scenario, it's really important that employers create those opportunities for, as we say, learning by osmosis, really learning the culture of the organisation, learning how things are done in a particular organisation, learning about ideas generation and teamwork and cooperation. So the BCC is working on a government task force at the moment that's looking at how businesses can bring people back into the office and operate on a sort of hybrid working basis, where some people will be working fully from home, some will be returning potentially full-time to the office, some will be doing a mixture of the two. And for us, I think it's about making sure employers have all of the information, all of the clear guidance that they need around legal aspects, best practice, sample policies, and all of those sort of things that are going to make it smoother for businesses to find their way through to what's the new norm. And it'll be different for different organisations, but it can't really be done without good communication with staff and engaging every member of staff. And different teams may well want to operate in different ways, but there's no doubt, you know, attitudes to the 9 to 5 have definitely changed over the past 12 months. I think it's a really good opportunity, as colleagues have said on the call today, about reaching out to a broader, more diverse workforce, which is good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Nula's made a point in the Q&A section about it. It does give opportunities that weren't there before because of remoteness. And you look around the network, we've got the Southwest selling themselves as the digital coast, where you can go down there and watch and then go. What is it? I can't remember what the word is now. Surfing, that's the word. Surfing in the evening. So there is that ability to use it to your advantage and to level up. But my concern is particularly for younger members of staff and also newer members of staff, getting really embroiled in the team and working out how to move forward. And Pavel, is that something you're finding is an issue for employers?
Yes, definitely. I think the shift towards remote working has made non-technical skills even more important. So some of the things Jane has talked about, communication, ability to work autonomously, ability to work asynchronously, all that has become really important for employers. One trend that we're seeing when we look at the job postings on Indeed is that there seems to be overall support from employers for a hybrid model of remote working. So rather than lots of jobs shifting to permanent, fully remote work, some kind of model where people still go into the office if they're in that kind of job. So for instance, right now, 89% of job adverts that mention remote work still specify a city location, which does kind of suggest employers are looking for people who are within the orbit of the office, even when they offer remote work. And that probably means that they do want to see people in person. I think that's probably good for well-being, good for productivity, to have kind of the best of both worlds. What it does mean, however, is that remote work is not going to be this big revolution that will give people from all over the country access to the same jobs. So when we look at places that still have very high claimant rates, so people claiming unemployment related benefits, places like Hull, Birmingham, Liverpool, people in those areas will not necessarily benefit from the fact that, there are lots of remote working opportunities in London. So we still have to be mindful that remote work is not going to solve that problem of inequality across people in different occupations and in different places.
Thank you. And Kirsty, what do you think that employers need to be doing and considering as the labour market starts to recover?
Yeah, so I think when we looked at our research, we spoke to a number of different businesses. I think we did 10 different roundtables and trying to see what the commonalities were. We created this blueprint with our research as to what we think employers needed to do. And there are really 6 sort of key areas. One was adjusting to the new working environment, which we've talked about a lot. So how you can help to maximise productivity, adopting those new processes, but also importantly, redefining your client relationships. And that's going to and has changed considerably over the last year. Secondly, as I said earlier, the importance of managing health and well-being of your employees. So not only as your existing workforce, but also to attract particularly the younger generation coming through. And Jane touched on it as well, effective communication. I mean, that's just been so important during COVID, and I think will increasingly be important, how you keep your employers up to date and how you can keep them reassured in terms of their jobs, or also those who've been on furlough, how you can communicate with them and make sure they still feel a valued part of your workforce. And again, evolving the workplace. So we touched on this a little bit. So about flexible working and the importance of that. And again, I think we're going to see more and more people expect to have this more flexible working. As Pal said, the 9 to 5 is not. Jane said 9 to 5 won't be there. It'll be much more flexible. And people have enjoyed the work-life balance, I think. So that will change considerably. And the importance of managing and maintaining your culture is in this environment much harder to do remotely. And I think companies and businesses need to be much more creative for the ways than they do that. And some of the things that we're looking at from a Barclays perspective are thinking about, how can we use some of the work that I lead in our societal purpose work? So how can we help that as a way of keeping teams together, where they're helping to perhaps helping social businesses with a challenge they're facing, but doing that online so we can still keep connected, but in different ways. Training we've talked about as well, being around the 5th priority, the shift in training. So there being a more of a blended approach and more training going digitally. How can you ensure the quality of that? And then lastly, as we've talked about, again, the next generation of the younger workforce. And from my experience of working with young people, the way they're going to work going forward will be very different to how I've worked in my career at Barclays. So they'll be looking for more of a career web where they're more transferable across different sectors, across different and different types of employment as well. So they may be working for 3 days at one large corporate, maybe one day, and they might be working for a startup, and the other day not working at all. So young people will be more concerned about how many skills they're accumulating as they go on this journey, rather than working up that career ladder as perhaps I've tried to do within Barclays.
Okay, Jane, same question to you from your viewpoint.
So just repeat the question, Sarah.
I've forgotten it. What do you think employers need to do to consider how they're going to operate as the labour market recovers?
Oh, okay. So we saw skill shortages before the pandemic. Those skill shortages are still here. That operating that flexible, hybrid style, inclusive and diverse workforce should really be top of the agenda, I think, because that's the best way to attract talent of all ages. Our commission focused on the needs of adults, those who are already in work. But people will want to progress in jobs, and if very often employers say, employers have said in the past, we if I train, people will leave. But if you need to train to keep people want to be developed in their role. So for all employers, really focusing on not only developing a pipeline of talent with younger people, working with schools and colleges, universities is essential, but also really focusing on your existing workforce, particularly people with lower skills, helping everybody to develop in the workplace. And so whilst the skills system itself can do a lot in terms of being more flexible and listening to employers themselves have a really key role to play in all of this. And I think it's equipping managers with good people skills and understanding your training needs. I think, as I said earlier, it's about that inclusivity really in terms of supporting people's mental health, making sure they feel part of the workforce, and the skills and training opportunities, making sure it's an inclusive offer. And training and development goes beyond just a training course, of course. It's it's the opportunities to learn from more experienced people. It's that coaching, softer mentoring, making sure you're offering all of that. That will help you keep and retain and attract talented people, but also develop your people. So the Commission was quite clear. Business has a clear role itself in contributing to people's skills and supporting people to get skills.
And there's been a lot of talk about productivity, hasn't there? Because we've had a massive shift from, frankly, employers not trusting their employees to work from home and at full productivity, to a situation where you've got people saying, I can't come into the office on Wednesday, I've got too much to do. Yes. I need to concentrate, I need to be at home working in my own environment. And we're seeing that balance as well. People want to come into the office to do the meetings and the talking and the strategy, they actually go home to do the real work. Yes. And that's what we're starting to find more and more. I mean, are you finding that, Pavel?
Yeah, certainly. I find that in my own experience and the experience of my colleagues, but also in the data, which, as I mentioned earlier, does seem to support the idea that employers are, thinking about a kind of hybrid model favorably. So, we see that the share of job adverts that mention remote work has quadrupled over the last year, from 3% to 12%. And it's still high, despite the fact that the economy has been reopening and we've been seeing a lot more job vacancies in non-work from home sectors. So that does suggest that employers are increasingly convinced about the value of letting people work remotely at least some of the time.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. We've got a good question from Amanda Ankin for the entire panel. What do you think of the particular emerging new roles or sectors that the panel think will be critical in the future? And how can business tap into to remain competitive? Kirsty, can I come to you on that one? That fits in very nicely with your brief.
Yeah, sure. So I think what we've seen from speaking to different businesses is, again, we've talked about digital skills, but in particular those technical skills. And if we look at Barclays as well, the technical skills, we're looking for things like data scientists and much more understanding and how you interrogate data is incredibly important. But in terms of the sort of growth sector, one of the ones that we're looking at is the green economy. And we think that's going to be a real a sector that we are looking at and looking to see how we can support more people transition into those sorts of roles.
Okay, and Pavel, for you.
Yeah, it's really hard to have a crystal ball and identify, specific roles that will grow. But I agree with Kirsty that it's really more about kind of big picture trends and developing certain skills. So, for instance, in recent years we have seen a lot more jobs in areas like artificial intelligence, green jobs, data science, but a lot of people that transitioned into those jobs didn't necessarily train for those roles specifically. Instead, they had skills that let them transition from something else. So I think, again, it's kind of back to skills being general enough to let people shift into those roles. And also keep their jobs as existing roles evolve and change and require more, literacy or digital skills.
Which again takes us back to one of the attendees' points about needing the transferable skills and the skills of learning how to be strategic and how to discuss things and all those things as well. that aren't actually a technical skill. They are a life skill, which again takes us back to the work that Kirsty's been doing. And Jane, what would your view be on this?
Yeah, I think for individuals, it's having a new mindset. You know, that the skills that you learned, that you came out of school with or learned in your first job, might not be the ones that are relevant, you know, over the next few years. So it's for people to be able to have this appetite for learning and this willingness to upskill, and possibly change career and change role. I think that's definitely the way that things will go as the workplace evolves and as jobs evolve, we become more automated, more digitalized, the net zero imperative. All of these things will change jobs, and I think it's having that mindset, having those basic skills, having the transferable skills, but also having that mindset, that appetite to learn and develop and change, and coming forward for opportunities that will help people develop. And for employers, obviously creating those opportunities and being inclusive as to who has access to them.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked a lot about younger employees, but it's relevant to all the generations. As we live longer, we're going to learn more, and I am grappling with teams. I'm almost there. And so I think there has to be a focus not just on the young people, but the older skilled workforce as well, and making it easier for us to retrain too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pavel, what are you finding?
Well, we're finding that thinking about training people for the skills of the future is definitely important, but we also need to train people for the skills of the present. So, for instance, we need more nurses, we need more carers. How do we train people, who may have the aptitudes and the personality required for those jobs? How do we give them the skills required to actually transition to those roles? And how do we make those roles more attractive, both from kind of a reputational perspective and also in terms of working conditions and pay. Healthcare and social care can only grow as a sector. We have an aging population. The pandemic has highlighted a need for more people in that area. But those are jobs that have existed for decades and that we still need to train more people for.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also found that women have been more affected in the job market across the pandemic, because I think there's a lot of work to build up confidence and get people back into the workforce. And Kirsty, what are you finding from the work with the older generations?
Work with older generations?
Yeah, I know obviously you're focused on the life skills, but you do stuff right the way through.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for life skills, we also have materials for and content available for the adult population as well. And helping them feel more resilient in the workplace, helping them to understand how to look for opportunities. And also for older generations, from our own Barclays experience, we've been doing a lot more around digital skills. As I said earlier, we're having all of our trainings have to pivot to digital as well, and making sure that our colleagues are able to do that. And one of the things we also do is helping through our Digital Eagle program upskill communities in terms of digital skills requirements. So by training our digital eagles to help our customers, we're also upskilling them at the same time. So I think that's really important to do, to make sure it's all your workforce, not just the younger generation who are coming into that, because it's so important. But I agree with Jane's points. It's the mindset. It's how we have that curious mindset right from school age to those entering the workforce, to those within workforce, because the job market, as Pavel said, is changing so much. You can't even identify what jobs are going to be to an 11-year-old when they leave school. When I talk to my children, I can't say what jobs will exist. So all we can have is make sure they're curious and ready to learn, and the same for those employers as well. And it's making sure you've got that right environment where training is a priority for your colleagues, for your employees, and you've got as many different opportunities to do that.
Yeah, my 11-year-old self didn't think I was doing this.
No, exactly. Me neither.
Okay, just one last question, and then I will bring it to a close from Lawrence. Do you think it's going to be difficult to persuade the younger, increasing industry suspicious and distant workforce to commit to significant skills training? Pavel, can I point that one at you?
It's a tricky question. I'm not necessarily sure the younger people are suspicious of industry and distant. I think certainly some of the trends that Kirsty has talked about in terms of younger people interested in, job hopping and being flexible and maybe shifting gears all the time probably is true for part of the people in school and part of the younger workforce. But I think there will certainly be other younger workers who are still interested in stability and having a career in a certain field that they want to develop over time. So, I think we do often find that when, say, the Office for National Statistics surveys young people, the jobs that people tend to find most exciting are these really sort of high-tech, hip jobs in the media and the internet. But those aren't actually the jobs that most young people enter when they start their career. So I think there's scope for career guidance while people are still in school to actually help them identify, okay, if you are interested in those exciting jobs, what do you need to do to get there? But also, what other opportunities are actually out there that may be more practical for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the young generation are far less suspicious of education as they are going through. I think where they're taught is improving all the time. So I need to wrap up now. We're running out of time. So thank you very much for our panel, Pavel, Kirsty and Jane. That's a really interesting discussion. Thank you. And thank you for your questions from the attendees. I'm sorry, I've got time for the last one. I think this really does embed the need for business to be thoroughly engaged in education, right the way from children right the way through for lifelong learning. And I hope you've gained some good insights from our panel. So thank you very much for being here. I just need to flag up some fantastic events we've got coming up with the BCC. We've got UK's journey to net zero and COP26 with Drax on the 17th of May. And we've taken full advantage of all things being online, and our conference this year, our international global conference this year, is happening on the 16th and 17th of June, and the theme is Return to Prosperity and Growth. We've got some amazing speakers, so please have a look at that. It's across 2 days, but not 2 full days, so you can mix and match. It's a very good event. And I just finally like to say thank you very much to our panelists and for everyone attending today. I wish you a happy day at work, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.